biggest headlines going right now in the NFL. Dak Prescott, contract extension or not for Dallas. Diana Rossini's reporting that the holdup has been the length of the contract, and that Dallas doesn't want to commit long term. Dak does, and they don't know if they really want to commit because they don't know if he's Super Bowl caliber worthy of that type of contract. He's going to get paid a massive amount of money no matter what. But if the Cowboys feel that way, why invest even short term if you're Jerry Jones?
Because you're hoping that you're going to have a definitive answer at some point in time. You could end up in a situation where Dak had the awful injury like he did a few years ago. But I think at this point in time, you know what you've got with Dak Prescott. He's probably, here's the challenge, somewhere around the 10th to 14th best quarterback in the NFL. And typically, the 10th to 14th best quarterback is not going to be somebody who wins you a Super Bowl. But he's also not somebody who's going to be such a disaster that you have no shot to win in the playoffs. So that is the challenge that I think the Cowboys find themselves in. It's sort of that awful middle ground where you're not sitting around saying, okay, we have to pay Patrick Mahomes whatever he wants. We have to pay Joe Burrow whatever he wants. We have to pay Josh Allen whatever he wants. They have to figure out where does Dak Prescott slot in. And then you also have to do it in a rapidly accelerating salary cap era where basically everybody who is employed at a high-end quarterback position is going to make over $50 million a year for a multi-year guarantee. And if I'm Dak, I don't blame him for wanting a long-term commitment from the Dallas Cowboys with a lot of guaranteed money, because every time he takes a snap, he risks that his career could end. And simultaneously, I don't blame the Cowboys for not wanting to sign him to a long-term deal, because if they're not convinced that he's the guy now, what's going to happen in the short term that's going to convince them that he's the guy? So I think both teams are, both player and team are making rational decisions from an economic perspective, but neither guy and neither team really wants a long-term, the team doesn't want a long-term relationship, and Dak doesn't want a short-term one. And I don't blame either one for having that perspective.
Clay, reading your starting 11, your reaction to college football weekend, I was struck by one thing that you wrote, and I completely agree with, the difference in approach between Clemson and Tennessee. And you can go back to that Tennessee win over Clemson in the bowl game, and it kind of was two ships passing in the night at that point. And it's in large part because of the way Dabo Swinney approaches NIL and transfer portal as opposed to Josh Heupel and Tennessee. How different is that approach, and are you seeing that big shift between those two programs?
Well, I think it's an interesting window, but it actually is representative for what usually happens with a legacy power and a disruptive challenger in business too. If you're winning, you don't want anything to change. And I think that's one reason why you had the decision made by Nick Saban to bail, because he had established dominance in college football. And at the age of 70 plus, he didn't want to suddenly recalibrate and have to reset and continue that dominance in an NIL era. And meanwhile, you have Clemson and Dabo Swinney, which has won at a really, really high level. And the way that they've done that is basically by building a culture of commitment and long-term relationship between player, coach, recruit. And Dabo has been unwilling to adjust, and he has been the legacy power that's being usurped by disruptive challengers. And this is why, in general, paradigm shifts favor the challenger as opposed to the incumbent. And you've seen this in sports media, for instance. A company like Sports Illustrated 20 years ago would have never been getting dominated like it is by a company like OutKick. Because, or Barstool, or any other insurgent challenger of the internet era, but they had such a huge competitive advantage that they didn't evolve in a way that would preserve their business in a digital era. And as a result, their print media business basically has vanished. The company has been sold multiple times. Its brand value has overall collapsed. And I think this window that's going on in college football right now represents a paradigm shift in the business. And if you're the upstart challenger, you have less to risk by changing and trying to elevate your position. And if you're the legacy incumbent power, you actually are less likely to evolve because you're already having success, and success typically breeds a great deal of inertia. So I think it's not just a story of college football. I think it's a story of a business challenger and incumbent. So far, it appears that Tennessee, as the challenger, has been willing to take risks and evolve in the paradigm shift in a way that Clemson has not. And it remains to be seen whether other legacy powers are going to evolve with the times or remain committed to a more sort of conservative policy in place and not seek to make as many rapid changes.
Clay, week one is full of overreaction after a game, in Florida State's case too, and social media is a blast to read. What do you feel like is the biggest overreaction right now that's just kind of a storyline that really isn't real based on a result?
Well, I think, first of all, it's hard to have really strong takes in a 12-team playoff era because we've never seen a 12-team playoff era. So a lot of the lessons that you would take from a BCS championship top 2 or a playoff top 4 don't apply when you're expanding the playoff pool to 12. And so I think one lesson is one loss is not disruptive or destructive. 2 losses may not even be. So until you are eliminated from being able to contend for a championship, which I think, frankly, Florida State is with 2 conference losses and a 17-team ACC, I think there's no way they're going to make the playoff, even if they were to run the table. I think they would have a great deal of difficulty with that, again, with 2 conference losses. So I think you can say that they're gone. But I think, LSU can certainly claw themselves back into it. USC can fall apart. And Notre Dame isn't necessarily guaranteed a playoff spot if you look at their remainder of schedule, because they could still lose a couple of games. So I think in general, losses are not going to matter as much as they have on a historic basis. And until you've lost 2 games, I don't think you're in a particularly perilous situation in terms of making the college football playoff. I do think, though, that if you don't have an elite level quarterback, that it's going to be hard for you to win 3 or 4 playoff games in college football, just like it's hard to win 3 or 4 playoff games in the NFL. And so I think sometimes you can look at somebody and say, hey, they may be a playoff contender, but I'm not sure they're a title contender going forward if they don't have the ability to have incredibly elite quarterback play.
Clay on the line with us from the airport. Clay, whenever you need to go, just jump in and tell us. We don't know the time frame here based on the timing. As you're probably about to board in a sec.
Clay, you were talking quarterbacks, and so many storylines in the state of Florida in college football. Quarterback's a key part of it. Miami got the right transfer quarterback in Cam Ward. It appears Florida State got the wrong transfer in DJU in the early goings this season. What did you make of Miami's beatdown of Florida and what it says about both of those programs right now?
Well, I think one lesson and idea is a good quarterback transfers maybe once. I don't think a good quarterback is going to transfer twice. So you guys may be able to think of someone who has been a really, really good quarterback that's played for 3 different teams. I think you can point to a Bo Nix, a Joe Burrow, a Hendon Hooker, a guy who has a lot of success at his second place, and maybe it didn't work out at his first place. But I don't think there's going to be very many quarterbacks that go
the quarterback
to
that comes to mind,
programs.
Clay, is JT Daniels, a guy who ended up playing, I think, 4 different places, right? And he wasn't very good at any of them. So that's a good point to what you're saying.
Sometimes, remember, Joe Burrow didn't beat out Dwayne Haskins, and Dwayne Haskins was a first-round draft pick, and Joe Burrow went and developed into a better quarterback at LSU. Sometimes you can just get stuck behind another guy who happens to win the job that's a pretty good player, and then you evolve and you get better, and all of that can factor in. But most of the time, elite college programs are not going to let you transfer twice, because if you haven't panned out at either of those places, or if the second place is letting you go too, I don't think the likelihood of you being a stud at the third place is very the probability seems low to me. So I think that's the takeaway. Cam Ward looks like he's going to be really, really good coming out of Washington State. I don't think he transferred anywhere else before Washington State, unless I'm wrong on that. But he looks phenomenal against Florida. I think Billy Napier is gone. I think that's one takeaway you can have and be confident in, is that given the schedule that Florida has, Billy Napier is not going to be back for year 4 based on how badly Florida played against Miami at home, losing by 24, getting dominated like they did. I think Florida is going to have a very subpar non-bowl season, 3rd straight losing season under Billy Napier, and I think he's going to be gone. And I think you have to pencil in Miami right now as the favorite in the ACC for that exact reason, because Cam Ward looks like he's the class of that conference. And we know that Miami has recruited at an incredibly high level so far under Mario Cristobal otherwise.
Clay, watching a lot of Tennessee football the way you and I have, we've seen a lot of different types of quarterbacks come through the doors there since Peyton Manning. It is safe to say that Tennessee has found their quarterback, and they have a quarterback. I watched a video right before the show with Urban Meyer in an interview saying that he turned to Matt Leinart watching the Tennessee game and said, this guy is an absolute monster. And he's got Tennessee in the playoff now just because of watching Nico Iamaleava. David Pollack said it's the most impressive debut he's seen of a hype debut of a hype quarterback for that one half that he saw him. Granted, it was Chattanooga, and we could say everything about that game and say it was Chattanooga, but Nico looks awfully good, Clay.
Yeah, and we'll see. It could be his coming out party on national television Saturday night with that triple header that ABC's got against NC State. As I mentioned, there's only 2 top 25 matchups. Texas on the road against Michigan, which will be the big noon kickoff game at noon that I imagine most of the nation will be watching, and then Tennessee, NC State, and Charlotte. And what I would say about Nico is take it outside of sports. You can tell if someone is incredibly talented at playing the piano or singing without having any knowledge of piano playing or singing just by watching them perform. And I would say as a true freshman, redshirt freshman, Nico has the ability to have the ball pop off of his arm and the comfort and the size with which he plays the quarterback position, that if Tennessee can keep him healthy, he just looks different on the field than everybody else. I'll give you a couple of guys that I saw that look different on the field when you watch them play. Remember Jamarcus Russell? Remember how much bigger and stronger he looked than everybody else under center at LSU? I think of Vince Young. I think of a guy like Justin Herbert. Cam Newton was the other guy I was going to go to, where you just watch them and you say, this guy just looks and moves different than everybody else on the field. And again, I don't know. My one concern about Nico is he's still skinny, and how many hits can he take? I'm not sure that Tennessee has any elite level offensive line to protect him. And so I worry about a blindside hit, or he's scrambling like we saw with Hendon Hooker in a read option scenario and his knee just buckles. But in terms of, if you told me, hey, he's going to start all 12 games in the regular season for Tennessee, I think the floor for Tennessee is 9 wins, and I think the ceiling is probably 11. And if you get to 10, you're in the playoff. And so I think we'll get a good test for him in that NC State game, and the hype train will be out of control if he performs at a high level, because Tennessee gets to come back home, gets a nice win, and then they will go on the road against Oklahoma. And that'll be, if Tennessee can beat NC State, as I think they will on Saturday night, that game 4 of the season on September 21st in Norman, Oklahoma, is going to be a seismic, unbelievable, huge game with Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma, which is its own storyline, and potentially taking the best quarterback Tennessee's had since Peyton Manning on the road with him. You never know how somebody's going to perform when the lights come on, when all the pressure, the bullets proverbially start firing in your direction in that live action. But Nico in the first half looked phenomenal.
Clay, how are you playing some of the biggest games this week? We've got Colorado, Nebraska. I believe that's a 7.5-point spread for Nebraska. Tennessee and NC State, you just mentioned, is up to 8. That line continues to separate. And Texas, Michigan, Texas favored by 7 on the road.
Yeah, I'm taking all the favorites.
Okay.
And it feels a little bit like Vegas is begging for the money. Whenever you go to a touchdown or a little bit over a touchdown, you typically get buyback on the other side. So I would imagine there's a lot of money on Colorado coming in, a lot of money maybe on NC State coming in. and certainly a lot of money coming in on Michigan. But I'm taking Nebraska, I'm taking Tennessee, and I'm taking Texas in all three of those games where you have basically touchdown favorites. Two of those, as I guess Nebraska is the home team, neutral site Tennessee, and then Michigan as the home underdog.
Is there any result that you would take as the underdog? Like, for instance, Arkansas and Oklahoma State, anything like that?
I like the over in the Arkansas-Oklahoma State game.
Yeah.
I just tweeted out I've got 11 picks, and I feel pretty good about. I think Mike Gundy versus Bobby Petrino has the potential to be a pretty fun shootout in that respect with that game. But to me, I like Nebraska, I like Tennessee, and I like Texas, and then the over in that game. That's 4 of them. I don't know if you want to pull it up in front of you right now. I'm on my phone, but I've got my picks all in, and I'm locked and loaded and ready for Saturday action, as well as some prize picks action ready for tomorrow with the Ravens going up against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and you've got your locks as well, the road underdogs in the NFL, including the Titans against the Bears, taking the 4.5. I think it's a close game. Rookie quarterbacks don't fare well in their opening starts either, so hopefully that's
and you got
good.
Will Levis with a brand new coaching staff, a little bit under the radar. I think the Bears is a 4.5 point favorite. It's a bit much.
Yeah.
In the prize picks action, I like Derrick Henry to score. I like Lamar Jackson to pass or run for 1.5 or more. I like Patrick Mahomes to throw for over 263.5, I think is his number. And then you get a free square with Caleb Williams guaranteed to throw for, I think, a half yard passing.
Oh.
As long as he gets 1 yard, the guys at Prize Picks are giving you a win there. So that's nice as well.
Yeah, that is. OutKick.com is where you can find it. It's the top story right now at the site. Clay, appreciate the time, man. Safe travels, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Appreciate you all. Thanks a lot.
Enjoy the West Coast.
Yeah,
Thanks, Clay.
Headed to L.A. Always on the move. Where is he? D.C., he said?
He's in D.C. now, and now he's headed to flying to L.A. World traveler,
That's
Clay
right.
Travis. Spent some time in Australia recently. You never know where he's going to pop up.
Yachts.
Where in the world is Clay Travis?
How about the storyline that's just breaking with the Commanders and their vice president, suspending their vice president? So this guy, let me get his name right.
This is like a candid camera situation where he was tricked into didn't know he was being recorded.
Yeah. Is it Rael Enting? Rael Enting. He's the vice president of content for the Washington Commanders.
Good job with that pronunciation.
Prior to, he's been there for 4 years. Prior to that, he was with the Jets for a couple of seasons. He met some woman on Hinge. She works for a media
all the
company.
great stories start.
She goes undercover, and he's on video saying all kinds of things about the league, about Goodell, about Jerry Jones, about DEI. And they've suspended him. The Commanders have suspended him. The quotes are something else, including, it's the faux concern, faux, I guess, is it PR in terms of DEI, supporting DEI, saying that Roger Goodell he likes black people, but Jerry Jones, he doesn't feel likes black people.
He says, I don't think the commissioner of the NFL hates gay people, hates black people. Jerry Jones, who really runs the NFL, I think he hates gay people and black people. He also said that most of the players are dumb as hell.
Yeah.
He said that some who are smart, they get their heads knocked around a few times and they become susceptible to conspiracy theories, saying they get dumber as they play.
Also on video, told the undercover reporter, and it's for O'Keefe Media is who she works for, told the undercover reporter that, quote, most of the fans are high school educated alcoholics, and called them mouth breathers.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in here. He also
had
told
a lot to get off his
he
chest,
told the
apparently.
reporter over 50% of our roster is white and religious, and God says F the gays.
I don't know. How do you get into this
He
conversation?
Said their interpretation. I don't buy any of that. Another big chunk is low-income African Americans that come from a community that is inherently very homophobic.
So this is over two different.
He had a lot of thoughts on the gay community and thoughts on
these. So I think, how do you get into these topics over two dates at dinner?
It just sounds like a guy who just likes to talk.
Yeah, and I mean, and the reporter was hitting record from
this
date
is
one.
I'm also
from the appetizer.
Like I also feel bad for this guy. Anybody that's recording you and you don't know it, and then releases it in the media.
So
that's tough.
So he says it's done out of the goodness of their heart, saying that the league's social justice initiatives are performative. Oh, excuse me. It's not done out of the goodness of their heart. It's done because George Floyd changed the game. It's to make as much money as possible. The NFL cares about the bottom line like any corporation above all else.
We know.
Yeah, well, yes. And then he goes on to say that the league makes so much money that, quote, they can faux prioritize DEI for the sake of good publicity.
He's also going to have to point to that scripture. I'm unfamiliar with the line where it says, God says, F the gays. That sounds very Old Testament, but I don't think that's in the Old Testament.
From the Commanders,
none of those words.
The language used in the video runs counter to our values at the Commanders organization. We have suspended the employee pending an investigation, and we'll reserve further comment at this time. A pending investigation of clicking play.
It's a tough deal. Like the dude's going to lose his job because he was unknowingly recorded on a date, talking about all these
two separate
things.
ones. But it immediately goes down the Jerry Jones path. Goodell comes up, the DEI initiatives. So. He's being
called it performative.
But I'm thinking, is he being peppered with questions by her at dinner? I guess.
Yeah, she must have got him talking, knowing that she wanted a story. Yeah, she wanted the story, so she got him talking about all these things in the league.
And these are just the quotes so far through the report. So we'll see what else is on there. No telling what conversations they decided to go with.
Yeah, because the league makes so much money, quote, they can faux prioritize DEI for the sake of good publicity.
Not good publicity for DirectTV. Chad, you've declared yourself a free agent?
Yeah, I'm done. I have defended DirectTV for years when people say you should go do this or you should cut the cord altogether or whatever. I'm done with DirectTV now. Let me say this. If we get to Saturday, and I don't have the ESPN networks that I'm currently paying for through DirectTV to watch college football, then I will definitely be done. But regardless, it's a situation where I'm reading so much about who's to blame. The deal is that ESPN and Disney hold all the power here because everyone is pissed off at DirectTV because they pay DirectTV. And in that payment to DirectTV, you're paying for those Disney-owned networks. When you don't get them, I'm not getting the return on my investment of what I'm paying DirectTV. So they need to cut my bill.
Yeah.
And regardless, it's not even about the money. It's about the ability to watch college football. These things are done this time of year on purpose for maximum effect. And they're getting maximum effect from me right now, so much so that I'm about to call DirectTV and cancel. So I'm officially a free agent. Please hit me up on X at the Chad Withrow. Let me know what I should go to and pay next because I'm officially done with DirectTV. I hear good things about YouTube TV. Maybe someone has suggestions. Hutton, someone else about YouTube TV. I'd like to know more about YouTube TV. Davey's giving me the thumbs up.
Well, a lot of people vouch about my dad.
They're offering like a 3-month for extremely low deal because of the DirectTV thing to get DirectTV customers to come over. So I may be going to YouTube TV.
The other thing too, I need to find that site that I recommended that you go to that you skip the wait line. You can actually talk to a human.
Yeah.
That way you can make that call. You and how many thousands of other people are pissed off for greatness for the same way.
Well, here's what I fear. It's gonna be more work and more of a pain for me to get this thing canceled.
Well, that's what they want, right? But if it's backed by Monday Night Football, are you still doing it? I think I'm
giving it to Saturday. I need it to get done for college football. That's what I want.
The Comcast Xfinity, was it Charter, whoever it was, last year in New York. Aaron Rodgers, first couple of snaps, they got a deal done. But I can't remember. Did they get the deal done that day, or was it over the weekend?
Well, I think Charter's not just in New York. My parents had the outage also here.
Last year?
Charter, yeah. So it was all over the country.
Through Disney,
but
ABC,
it was all Charter. Now, here's the struggle with all this.
Or maybe it was like a high percentage of New York residents.
YouTube TV had an issue with Disney ESPN in 2021. And the thought is their contract could be up next year. So what if I switch to DirectTV and come football season next year, they pull the plug on YouTube TV because of the next contract dispute?
See, I feel like that would be easier to cancel for you, though.
Yes, you're right.
I think
it would be.
Still,
I'm a free agent. I'm open to suggestions. I got a buddy who's big into Tubi, I think is what he watches. No, not Tubi. Fubo TV, where he gets live television through Fubo.
And the other thing, too, how much of this is that partnership between Time Warner, ESPN, and Fox that these companies want a piece of or want to be able to air content that may be exclusive to that app or company? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like if they're going to put a playoff game, for instance, available there instead of on ESPN.
Well, so I was
like Peacock would do instead of on NBC.
I was illegally watching a buddy subscription to something the other night while watching Boston College, Florida State. Here's the issue I have with all that. I still like the ability to turn to something else.
Yeah.
And it is a pain to go from one application to another and not having the ability to do all that. I know that there are newfound ways to do some of that where you basically have channels, like you could go from Netflix to Prime Video on a channel type deal with newer televisions. But Hutton, the struggle is real. I just figure it out. And if it's not done by Saturday, I'm officially a free agent.
Chad, I think we're going to see some truth serum handed out to some programs this upcoming weekend, because it's difficult sometimes to take away much of anything from Week 1 in college football based on opponents, big programs playing certain opponents. But in the case of, let's say, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Colorado, NC State, I think those programs are about to face some reality that maybe not to the extent of Clemson, Florida State, but we're talking playoffs, and rightfully so in Michigan's case, based on what they did last year. Florida State replaced a lot of players. Michigan's had to do the same. Replace Harbaugh as well. Replace Connor Stallions, at least we think. Chad, Texas and Michigan. I think Texas wins this game. Michigan's offense needs some work. Oklahoma State's intriguing to me because Arkansas, I believe, is better than what I was giving them credit for, and that's because of Bobby Petrino. And I mentioned this last week. I want to see Sam Pittman succeed at also it's going to prop up Bobby Petrino, and I don't like the guy at all. The quitter, Bobby Petrino. NC State, this happens every year where they look good, but it's based on final score on paper instead of how they actually performed on the field. They get away with some key moments with opponents losing the game, NC State not winning the game. I love what I saw from Nico. Accuracy. Hard to judge much else against an inferior opponent like UT Chattanooga.
He didn't even have to run at all. That was not any part of their game plan. He didn't have to against Chattanooga.
NC
He'll
State
have to run in this game.
Faces some reality this upcoming weekend to me. In what is a defensive front that may be as good at Tennessee since we've seen Haynesworth and Henderson. Is that a stretch to you, Chad, to say that? That defensive line is supposed to be superb.
It's very good and very old. They're a very old defensive line, yes.
That's bad news for the Wolfpack. And then there's Colorado. Chad, this Nebraska team, you want to talk about another quarterback. Raiola is legit. And I think we see the better quarterback playing for the Cornhuskers on Saturday. So give me the storylines of Michigan, Oklahoma State, NC State, and Colorado facing some tough reality with overreaction for Week 2 compared to Week 1. You with me or with this?
I'm with you on all of those. I mean, it could also be a reality check for those opponents of those teams, considering some of them were coming off great performances.
I believe in the other 4.
Yeah. I just jotted this down this morning. Impressed and not impressed after the first weekend. And it's funny you mentioned Raiola. Dylan Raiola was one I put down as impressed.
Yeah.
After 1 week. USC's defense and Danton Lynn,
Great
the
point.
new defensive coordinator, very impressed. Penn State, very impressive. To even go through that long weather lane, come out and just continue to kick the asses of West Virginia was impressive. Nico impressed. Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia, their quarterback.
Dude is an alpha, man.
He's a player. Watch out for Vandy. I don't know if they're going to win a bunch in the SEC, but I do think they're not going to get shut out of the SEC this year. They look a lot better than South Carolina right now, who's on their schedule.
He brings the leadership and the qualities, the intangibles at quarterback that they have desperately missed. He's chatting up and yelling on the sideline at teammates to get them going. They were talking trash to him pregame. Well, I mean, anybody would to Vandy, but you've got them talking trash, Virginia Tech, and Vandy's quarterback is saying, "Hey, talk trash after the game. You got to beat us first."
Yeah.
And then the better quarterback went out there and whipped them. It was they got it 17-0.
It was 17-0.
They gave up the lead, and I thought this was typical Vandy.
Yeah,
and then they go
were
win the game.
down 7. You know, they completely lost a 17-point lead, down 7, and then Vandy got a drive. Then Vandy got another drive and missed a chip shot field goal. Then you're thinking,
after getting a 3 and out,
now they're going to lose in overtime. Nope, Vandy goes and scores, and then stops Virginia Tech.
Vandy's not
Great
back
win for them,
but that's encouraging to see.
And I don't know that the only thing back for Vandy would be a return to the James Franklin era.
Yeah,
because they never really were there in modern history.
Well,
but
back would mean competitive.
If they could get back to a 7, in the mix of 6-7 wins, that would be terrific. And I don't think it's crazy at all to say that this team could go 6-6 and make a bowl game, possibly. So very impressed with them. Not impressed South Carolina at all. Lenore Sellers, their quarterback, struggled. They struggled to put away Old Dominion, who I think was picked 7th in their conference, 7th or 8th, towards the back end of their conference. And just the ACC in general, not impressed. So
Old Dominion, ODU plays East Coast opponents very well.
Yeah, they beat Virginia Tech a year or two ago.
NC State.
Also, yeah, they've played teams tough. But going back to the ACC, this is a big. If you want to salvage some things here, you were able to do that with Miami over Florida. Now you get another. I'll say for sure top half of the SEC, probably top third of the SEC opponent.
Yeah.
In Tennessee. With NC State on a neutral site in Charlotte. Great opportunity for the ACC. I'm with you, though, Hutton. I was shocked when that line opened at 5.5. It's already up to 8. If you asked me to guess after watching those two teams play, I would have said 2 touchdowns. I thought it would have been around 13.5 going into the game. And it's up to 8 now. So what does Vegas know on that one? But I saw Western Carolina live in NC State's backfield. So Tennessee's defensive line should feast. James Pierce, who could be a number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, he played 10 snaps against Chattanooga, and they got him out for the day. He is ready to feast in this game also. I think that's a very good matchup for Tennessee. NC State's always good defensively under Dave Doran. I think that this will be a challenge for Nico. But he was challenged against Iowa's great defense in the Citrus Bowl win a year ago and did fine. He had to run a lot more. And I think the quarterback running element will need to be a part of this game plan for Tennessee. And you're going to see a little bit more of that in this game to get the ground game really moving. But I'm with you. I like Tennessee in this game, and I like Texas going on the road. I was very unimpressed with Michigan's offense.
Yep. Plodding, slow. By the way, App State at Clemson this weekend.
I am very tempted to make that my wrong team favored and try to get the 17 points.
Yeah,
By the way, I am kicking myself. All week I talked about UNLV and how I loved UNLV against Houston. They won like 27-3, and they were a 7-point underdog or 5-point underdog in the game, and I did not take them in wrong team favored. After talking about it all week, I went with Florida, and Billy Napier got me.
I took Miami of Ohio over Northwestern. Thank God I didn't even pay attention to this game. It's 13-6 final. Northwestern won 13-6. Yeah.
The view of the lake at that lacrosse stadium they're playing in is very, very cool.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
The drop of you see the city skyline of Chicago.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Right behind it. It's
I would go to school
cool.
there if I'm playing lacrosse. Football.
I mean, if I, got into Northwestern,
had
the money to go
smart,
to Northwestern, or had a scholarship to Northwestern, I would absolutely go to school at Northwestern. Sign me up.
We still have Michael McHenry.
Do you want to go back to college?
Oh,
Is
here
that
it
what
is.
you're
Here's the
saying?
view. I mean, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. Fourth quarter, 10 minutes left, 13-3.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Big Ten football is back, baby. All we need is the sultry sounds of Big Game Beth Mowens on the call of that
Big Game Beth.
to really make it special.
Big Game Beth.
There's nothing that sounds like 48 degrees and overcast like the sound of Beth Mowens' voice.
Is Mark Jones on the call for Colorado, Nebraska?
Is that game on ESPN?
I don't know. I mean, it's at Nebraska, so it's
it's on NBC.
Okay.
So no, it's Noah Eagle.
Oh, cool.
And
good.
Who's his broadcast partner? No, I'm blanking.
Now we'll get a great call. That's good.
Yeah, you're not going to get the Homer call.
Right.
This one. He's going to be a lot more down the middle.